It's time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Indeed it does on a Thursday, and great to have you with us all across America and Canada for this Thursday extravaganza. 60 minutes, got a lot to get to, and we will. There is news from the NFL with the FBI investigating the NFLPA. It's just the gift that keeps on giving, the NFL Players Association. We'll talk about that. Shannon Sharpe is out at ESPN. He thought he was going to be up and ready to go for the start of NFL training camp after settling his civil lawsuit. Not so fast, Lee Harvey. ESPN has decided to let him go. We will talk about what all of that means coming up a little later on. A story broken by our friend Andrew Marchand over at The Athletic. Odds and ends, a whole bunch more, but we start things out where else but Major League Baseball, where the MLB Trade Deadline is here. By the time many of you watch this, we will remind you, we always give this admonition, that the trade deadline will likely have passed by the time you've seen this, because most stations air this in around that 5-6 o'clock range. But for those of you watching the podcast YouTube version of the show, we will have a special live sports wrap from 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern tonight with myself and David Aardsma, talking about all the latest news leading up to and just past the MLB trade deadline. All right, all of that out of the way. Good day, fellas. Let's talk about the trade deadline. And Eugenio Suárez was thought to be the big prize of this trade deadline, and that prize goes to the Seattle Mariners, who said come hell or high water, they wanted to bring him back to Seattle, and guys, they certainly do. And I feel like they pulled the wool over the Diamondbacks' eyes. I think if you're Arizona, you got to get more in this deal. You've got to get one of those top prospects, whether it's Ford or Montes. You got to get one of those top prospects. This is a great move for Seattle. And let me just say one thing, and then you guys could chime in as it relates to this. This is a year, and you're already starting to see it here at the deadline, where the AL has never felt more wide open, and that this is the product of that. A Seattle team that never goes all in, that is always kind of lukewarm and pushes some of their chips in but holds some back. I love what they've done here, and I think this is going to be a crazy deadline, guys, with all these teams in the AL that feel like if we've got a shot to make a wild card, we've got a shot to win a World Series.
I don't know what else there's going to be. We've already had so many trades already. This is great. It's wonderful for Seattle. Like you said, a team that's always lukewarm in the trade deadline doesn't really make that move. They're looking up at Houston and looking at that wild card saying, we have this. We have a real opportunity here. And we've talked about it on the show. They've got the pitching staff. They've got the pitching staff of a generation. Great pitchers, up and down, bullpen, starting rotation, but they need more oomph in that entire lineup. They've got Cal Raleigh doing everything he can to be Babe Ruth or maybe Aaron Judge, whatever way you want to look at it. And then they needed to get Suárez. But when you come out and say, we're gonna hell or high water, we're gonna get Suárez. When you have Suárez, you got to sit back and just wait. You could have pulled this deal tomorrow and gotten the same players, or you could have started selling it to other teams and started pushing it just to try to raise the value.
I think, to me, first of all, objectively hilarious that the Mariners trade to get a guy who they salary dumped 9 months ago. Very, very funny. But yeah, weirdly enough for me now, Mariners specifically, the worry shifts. Because, previously going into the playoffs, the worry's always been, what is that team going to have lineup? Why are they going to be able to produce? Now it's, okay, their rotation is a real question mark when we look at the playoffs. Sure, they've got Louis Castillo and Brian Wu at the top. Those guys are solidified, great starters, will be good in the playoffs. Look past that, though. George Kirby, 4.5 ERA this year. Both he and Logan Gilbert have dealt with injuries. Who's the Emerson Hancock, I believe, is the rookie who they've relied upon a bunch this year. We know the track record of rookies in the playoffs. So as we look towards the playoffs with the Mariners, whose front office clearly is doing so with these moves, I really start to concern myself with the pitching. David, what do you think about their chances come the playoffs with that pitching staff?
I know what you're bringing up. I understand from an outside looking in, we can say not the best rotation they've ever had. But one, Gilbert's been better. He has a 3.3 right now at this point. Brant Wu has been absolutely killing it. Castillo's been killing it. When you get to the playoffs, that's all you need. Is most teams go into playoffs with two good
And
starters.
to me, that's
Dodgers.
enough. In a 7-game series, you're going to get those guys 5 times.
Yep. And that's exactly what it is. You're going to get to a point where you don't even need you don't need a 5th starter. So whether it's Logan Evans or Hillcock, whoever it is, you don't need them at that point. And so when they're looking at their rotation saying, all right, 7-game series, my 4th game starter, and I only need one time is George Kirby. That's a pretty good. I don't think there's many rotations in baseball that the Dodgers would take that right now. So I don't know if there's many rotations in baseball that would look at their 4th starter and be looking at George Kirby and be concerned. I think they'd all be excited where they're at with that.
Did the Diamondbacks get enough though?
When a team tells you how badly they want you, this is the same as when you're going to tell the Yankees, I want to be a New York Yankee for life. And then they're grinning. They know they don't have to pay you as much. So when you say, I want that guy, no, you did not get enough of them. And there's enough. He was the number 1 prized free agent. Or another one prize a player on the trade market. He's it. He's the gold standard. And you know what? You got a couple New York teams that could have used a third baseman at least earlier. And then you have a bunch of other teams that will take him and find a position for him. So I don't think they got enough for him. But again, it's a rental. You're not getting him for multiple years, so that's going to hold some teams back from giving up everything. But if you would have just waited, I think they could have for sure gotten more.
You mean literally right up until the last second?
Why not? Why not? These teams
Seattle might have just said, "Look, this is going to be our best and final offer." You're telling me that? I mean, I don't know.
When that happens, and if that happened that early, I can't imagine a team that early would have said this is our best and final. Especially if there's other teams in the hunt. If there's other teams even knocking on that door and they let you know, they're going to say, all right, here's a little bit more. But if I'm also the Diamondbacks, there is that point where you got to take anything you get. You take anything you get, and you can come back and re-sign them if you really want to, which I wouldn't. But you got to take an offer at some point.
Dude's going to get paid in the offseason. All right, we got more to do with David Aardsma. There were other moves, closer moves. Want to get his thoughts on that, and we will as this edition of Sports Wrap continues. All right, let's keep the conversation going on this MLB Trade Deadline Thursday. Our man David Aardsma, former big league reliever, closer, hangs out with us on the show every Thursday, but today, especially with the trade deadline percolating. Shane Bieber to the first place Blue Jays, courtesy of the Guardians. And again, it just kind of fits into the narrative that I was talking about at the top of the show, guys, where you've got 8 or 9 teams in the American League that all say, hey, we can make the playoffs. And if we can make the playoffs, there's nothing stopping us in this wide open AL from potentially making a run at least to the World Series. And who knows what the Dodgers will look like. Who knows if the Dodgers will even be in the World Series by the time we get there, guys. What do we think of Bieber to Toronto, guys?
Interesting move. We know this is obviously a trade candidate. Right now, where do you put him in that rotation? What does that look like? Because you have Berrios, Gausman, Scherzer, Bassett, and then you have Eric Lauer, who's pitching great, 2.6 ERA right now. So where do you put him? And then is this a great move back in 2022 or 2021? Is this a 2025 move that's really going to move the needle in any way? I'm not sure at this point.
Sam?
I think the move just specifically on this move is interesting because of what you've seen out of Max Scherzer. It's like, to me, in my mind, David, when I saw them make this move, it was like, all right, they're pretty clearly going to go to a 6-man rotation. And the way that Scherzer's been pitching this season once he came back from that injury is kind of like the best Max Scherzer start is a 5 and dive kind of start. He's given you between 3 and 4 and 2/3 innings every start. So to me, the math, at least that the Blue Jays front office did, was like, all right, if we can just go out and get another one of those guys who's got the pedigree, has the playoff experience, can get us a few innings and turn it over to our long relievers, put Eric Lauer back in the bullpen, maybe make him work out of long relief. I think that there's some interesting logic there in a very competitive division that they could even end up not winning. Let's not write that off right now.
But what do we make of Cleveland? Who's one of the teams we thought was in contention to make the postseason, making the moves they've made here.
That Class A case cooked that team. That's, to me, that's what it is.
I think they're looking the realistic output of that team and what is happening with the rest of the AL. And then the Class A deal, that finished it. Obviously, they were probably going to trade maybe Class A anyways, but the realistic chances that they're going to come out on top of anything right now at 500 and make any splash in the playoffs, they knew where this was going to be. It's interesting that the Royals are still kind of sitting there right behind them and haven't gone either way. And so the Guardians have chose to sell. Class A kind of closed that deal for them in a lot of different ways. And the Royals are still sitting there interesting. But bring it back to the Jays, they're definitely not for sure going to win that division. That's still up in the air. You never know where the Yankees are going to come. You never know what type of deal the Yankees are going to do. They need to definitely make some more moves. But the Blue Jays are taking a chance at it. This is an interesting move. I think this is just more of what they already have. I don't mind going for a guy like Shane Bieber at this point. Obviously, I wouldn't be giving up any prospects for Shane Bieber, which they did. I wouldn't be putting my money on Shane Bieber. It's nice to have him, but I would have rather had him earlier in the year and seen what I had all year long, see how the rehab process is going, see this and see where my rotation is. But what are you going to do? Replace Max Scherzer with Shane Bieber? Financially, you're not going to do it. You're not going to get rid of, as a locker room, you're not going to do that.
I'll tell you a guy that could still be on the move too here before the deadline, and again, he might be gone by the time you watch this, is Stephen Kwan. Watch for him at the I would have loved the Yankees to get Stephen Kwan. Oh my God.
That's the guy.
That is the kind of guy the Yankees need. A bat to ball guy, makes contact, doesn't strike out a lot, can run, can steal you a base here and there. That's the guy I would have rather they go and get than some, White Sox outfielder that you add to this team. Give me a break.
Wait a second. Because we have to go back to the AL Central. God, that's a sentence I never thought I'd hear myself say. But first, Jason, if the Yankees got Stephen Kwan, where on earth would they put him?
Well, Judge is not going to be playing the outfield right away.
Right.
You're not going to have Stanton playing the outfield. They just went and got another outfielder. So the same outfielder you got
Stanton
from the White Sox.
Or Judge on the bench. One of the two.
Look, you figure out a way if you're the manager, but Stephen Kwan's a guy that Stephen Kwan's the kind of baseball player. Key words there. Because I could spend a whole segment talking about the Yankees' miscues last night and winning despite the fact that they should have lost. David and I were watching the game together, even though we weren't really together. That's the kind of baseball player the New York Yankees need right now is a Stephen Kwan. But anyway.
I would take him for the rest of the year over Jason Dominguez.
No,
100%.
Stop it. No.
Because I got news for you.
That's it.
Jason Dominguez
Did you see the play Dominguez made?
Going back to Cleveland.
Did you see the play that Dominguez made last night? It was a game-saving play that he made.
And Kwan does those every day.
Kwan
does type of
but he doesn't.
plays
But
every
Dominguez has power. He can run. No, we're not giving up on Jason Dominguez. You're crazy.
No, wouldn't be giving up. You would have to be trading.
No, we're not. No, and that means giving up on him. We're not giving up on Jason Dominguez. Jason Dominguez is having a nice year, and he's not even playing every day.
Or Dominguez.
Long-term Dominguez. Long-term Dominguez. 100%. Are you nuts?
You're a Yankee fan talking about long-term.
You're nuts. You'd rather have Stephen Kwan over Jason Dominguez?
I'd like to go
Do we
back
drug
really
test?
quick.
Do we drug
Earlier,
test?
when I said that the Blue Jays might not win the division, I was wrong. The Blue Jays have that division wrapped up, and it's exactly because the Yankees organization thinks exactly like this about a guy like Jason Dominguez.
Oh, you're all
My
nuts.
goodness, he is nowhere near as valuable as Stephen Kwan. Even if you could put me in a time machine 5 years from now, and I promise you that Jason Dominguez would not be as valuable as Stephen Kwan. Here's my thing, though.
Only got a minute.
We have a minute left. Yohan Duran, I didn't see this move coming. I mean, I don't think a ton of people saw this move coming for this level of prospect. But the Phillies bolster a bullpen as much as they needed it. What did you take away from Duran moving to Philadelphia?
Real quick.
It might not have been for this many prospects that we figured out, but this is Dave Dombrowski. Do you expect him to keep prospects? The answer is absolutely not. He hasn't known a prospect that he hasn't traded. So I love this. The Phillies need it. Phillies need more. They need more of a bullpen. For once, give me some depth in the bullpen for a Phillies team, and this team might actually win something that matters. I love the move. Duran is a stud, maybe the best closer on this trade market. But give me some more depth in that bullpen, and then we can talk about this team being a legit World Series contender.
Shohei Ohtani pitched for a little while last night. He started cramping. Aardsma was cramping just talking about it with me last night. We're coming back. All right, one more segment with David Aardsma, the former big league reliever and closer, hangs out with us on SportsWrap. We were texting last night, David, while I was watching that Yankees debacle, that roller coaster ride of emotions that is the New York Yankees.
Every night.
I just don't know how Aaron Boone keeps his job. I really don't. When you have a team that is this consistently bad with the fundamentals of baseball. And you know what's funny? Last night I was watching, I had to make myself feel better, so I went and watched like an hour of Yankees baseball from like 1996 through 2002, all like the best moments of Yankee baseball. I went on YouTube on my television and just sat there and watched it. My husband was literally looking at me going, "What are you doing?" Like this is what TV looked like in 1996. I was like, yes. And just watching how fundamentally sound this team was, how they took the extra base, the defense, all that stuff, the flip from Jeter. And I'm like, where is that? Where is that brand of Yankee baseball? It's gone. Well, we were texting last night when Shohei Ohtani got pulled from a game. Originally they were saying it was forearm, and all of a sudden you start to go, uh-oh. Then after the game they said it was cramping. You had some interesting thoughts when we were texting about it. Share them here.
So this is something I believe, if it's really a cramp, okay. And I'm not Dodgers doctors. I'm not standing on that mound talking to Shohei Ohtani and getting a sense of actually what's happening. But when you do rehab sessions, when you do your rehab assignment in the big leagues, something is going to happen. This is why we don't do it. This is not the first case of somebody rehabbing from an injury, but this is the first time you see it from a major long-term injury in the big leagues. And in situations like this, these things should be happening, and you should be getting through little soft injuries and little things like this in a minor league field, in the backfield, without cameras and nobody paying attention and nobody knows it even happens. Before the game, throw 4 innings, throw 5 innings, get your innings up. This happens in the minor leagues for reasons. And if this is anything more than a cramp, it's on the Dodgers. It's on the Dodgers staff, on the medical staff, on the front office, on the coaching staff, on any single person that had anything to do with saying yes to this idea. It is on them. And the Dodgers have shown there's no reason for forgiveness with what this medical staff and front office has gone through with injuries. The amount of pitching injuries they've had, there's something there. There's something that needs to be addressed, and maybe it's nothing. But the amount of pitching injuries they've had, and then they choose their biggest prospect pitcher, or whatever you want to say it, the unicorn, to do a rehab assignment on major league mounds. It begs a question. It begs to be questioned. It begs to have some answers on whose idea that was.
Well, but David, I would ask you this, like, what is the alternative? Because you remember when Ohtani first started pitching in actual games again, after he had been pitching in simulated games for months at that point, he was the best hitter, and probably still is, in that lineup. So, like, you're not just going to send your best hitter down to the minor leagues so he can figure out his pitching. So what would the viable alternative have been for you?
I have an answer. It would have been he doesn't pitch until next year, when we can actually stretch him out properly and have a spring training. Do they need him pitching 3 or 4 innings for them to win a World Series? Is this really going to be the difference between them not winning the World Series? No, it is absolutely not. They could have done this correctly and started it at spring training, off-season workout program, all of that. That's my opinion. But David, you're the expert. I'll defer to you.
I will say this, though. Him pitching 1 inning won Japan a World Baseball Classic. Him pitching 1 and 2 innings at a time.
Tournament. It's apples and oranges to Major League Baseball.
It might have led to another reason why you had Tommy John in the first place, is pitching the World Baseball Classic, which it doesn't have the biggest injury history that everybody likes to talk about. You know what you do? You do more simulated games before the games. You do 4 innings. Like he did a simulated game and it was an inning. That's not a rehab. That's not a process. That's not going through at ups and downs and facing lineups and facing runners on base. He faced media members in some of he faced players that were going to retire while I was playing in some of those sessions. You know, and so you're not really facing major league teams. You're not facing minor league teams. Go to every other day, whenever you're going to make your start. It's going to be every 60 days, whatever they're going to do in his normal rehab process, and send them back to Arizona to face their Arizona League team. Send them to their AAA team and do a full simulated game with their AAA team. Whatever it is, because you can't do a normal rehab assignment where you're on the IL and so you get the roster management stuff. But get creative. And they didn't at all. They didn't do anything. They said, you know what? We'll just make him a reliever at the beginning of the game. Major League Baseball said, yes, we'll change the rules so he can hit after he does that. And they just went with it like it's normal. This isn't normal for a reason. And the only reason Major League Baseball ever made that rule was for Shohei Ohtani in this very, very specific case. And now we're living with the realistic thing about letting pitchers pitch for 4 innings and then come in and hit for the next 5.
We've got 2 minutes left in the segment, roughly thereabouts. Teams that have not been busy here at the deadline. The Red Sox. I mean, playing better in the second half, trying to make a run, slow start to the season. Are we surprised that Boston hasn't done anything so far?
I'm very surprised, especially where they're at, and they have a real legit chance to make the playoffs. And when you're seeing the teams around you get better, when you're seeing, for whatever it is, you're seeing the Yankees get better. You're definitely seeing the Blue Jays get better in that same division. You're seeing the other teams in every other division make moves. I'm very surprised because they have a short leash in Boston. Craig Breslow does not have the longest leash out there. I do believe they believe in Craig, and they're starting to see the realistic opportunities that the team is, and what it's become is that they're not that bad of a team. They're pretty good, and it's better without Devers. So they're seeing that. But still, Detroit's killing it in the Central. You're seeing Blue Jays getting better, Yankees getting better. You're seeing the Mariners get better. Astros will probably try to figure something out here. But every other team's getting better except for you right now. And that's usually
Angels,
not a good place to be.
I'll also say this in the final few seconds we have. I'm surprised the Angels didn't do anything here. You've got a healthy Trout. I'm surprised the Angels haven't. And look, there's still some time here. But
they picked up a couple relievers.
Yeah. Kind of surprised. Kind of surprised the Angels.
They're not a couple relievers away. I got news for Angels fans.
Yeah, they're only four back of the Mariners for the third wild card spot, though. Just saying. We got to go. Thanks, guys. David, we'll see you on the trade special coming up later on.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Welcome back. Let's move away from the baseball talk for now. Let's focus in on the NFL. We've talked at great length about this NFLPA debacle with J.C. Treader and Lloyd Howell, the mismanagement of money and the way this whole thing's gone down. We've had Jason Cole on and talked about it with him. We also talked about it with Nick Ferguson, former NFL safety. And there's another wrinkle to this story, and that could be the feds getting involved, potentially in investigating what's going on at the NFL Players Association. And Sam Yarnell, I know Pablo Torre has talked some about this. I just wonder where this thing goes from, Eric, because clearly we thought the end of it, or you might have thought the end of it, was Howell out, Treader out, we're going to tear this thing down and start fresh. But it feels like there's going to be a few steps in the process before we get to how they rebuild the NFLPA right now.
My goodness, Jason Page, things have gotten very, very interesting in the football world this Thursday morning. The bombshell report coming down this morning that the FBI is looking into some of the actions of the NFLPA, of a company that the NFLPA was heavily invested in, own a large stake of, and Lloyd Howell and JC Treader. So this is absolutely shocking. And where my mind goes when I saw this reporting and I'm still, there's so much information out there to kind of sift through, and I'm still getting through all of it, but great job, like you said, by Pablo Torre, Mike Florio at Pablo Torre Finds Out and Pro Football Talk. They've done such an amazing job covering all this. And it seems to me that where my brain keeps ending up, whenever there's a new layer to this onion, a new piece of this head of garlic that we have in this story, it's what does this mean for football? Because like the last time that something of this magnitude feels like it happened may have been the OJ scandal. Maybe it was the concussion thing in the late 2000s. I don't know, Jason. This feels like, and again, I said this when we were talking about this last time on the show, because it's internal, it feels like it's something that could really damage football and the NFL and the NFLPA as a whole. They're entities that are so strong that they can only be taken down from within. And it feels like this could be the beginning of a crumbling to an extent for these massive corporations. I'm more of the mindset that maybe I'm looking at it as glass half full. I think this is going to be long term. I think this is going to be the best thing possible for the NFL Players Association, because they're going to have to tear this thing down to the studs and rebuild it from scratch. And the best way to fix something is generally, as painful as it may be, and there is a lot of pain to come here in the next several months for the NFLPA, and it's going to be happening during the season, which is not great for the league. But listen, I think Nick Ferguson said it most succinctly yesterday. If you're the NFL owners right now, you're just kicking back. You're just sitting back going, huh? Yep. They don't have to do a thing. They could just watch this whole thing implode, which it is, and try to take advantage the best they can in the interim while the NFLPA gets its act together. I will say this. Well, I don't think this is necessarily as disastrous for the league as a whole. I will say this. The players have got to get on the same page. And we were talking yesterday and the day before with Nick Ferguson about, who the next head of the NFLPA is. I don't know if there's ever been a bigger inflection point in the history of the players as a collective in the NFL than there will be when it comes to them having to make a decision on who the next person to lead them is. Because they have been feckless for a decade, basically, as it relates to leadership. I mean, maybe even longer than a decade, as it relates to leadership at the top for the NFLPA. They've got to get it right. And I don't know if you can get all the players on the same page. It's almost like herding sheep or herding cattle. I don't know if they could get everybody on the same page, Sam, to rally around one person. I don't know how you do that as a collective, because
there's such factions within these player groups that I don't know how they're going to be able to do it. I really don't.
Well, and I think it's something that, that Nick touched on, right? When I asked him what he would feel like if he were a player in this situation right now, if he were, just a random guy trying to make a roster even, right? Trying to not be on a practice squad this year. How would it feel? And he said, I would feel betrayed. I would feel hurt. And I think that, Jason, is a very hard time to rally the troops together. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you're all feeling like you're being disserviced by the same people, even if it is to replace those people, it's hard to band together to do something good when you're, mentally, emotionally, not to mention physically, from this incredibly physical sport they play, disheveled.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to be very difficult. And I think you're talking about a situation where they're going to probably have to name somebody in the interim to run this thing. And then you're going to have to wait till next March before you can even start to have these conversations about who takes the thing over permanently. And in that case, are players going to really want to be engaged in that conversation when the season's just ended and they've just bashed their brains in for however many days? It is certainly a confounding situation. All right, we're coming back. Shannon Sharpe's out at ESPN next. Welcome back to this Thursday edition of SportsWrap. From the sublime to the ridiculous, maybe? I don't know. I certainly was surprised, Sam Yarnell, to see the news that Shannon Sharpe is out at ESPN after settling a civil lawsuit that accused him of sexual assault and rape. Because it felt like everybody was satisfied with the terms by which he settled with this Jane Doe that was represented by Tony Busby, who's been involved in a lot of these sorts of cases. But the news came down yesterday from Andrew Marchand, our friend over at The Athletic, who comes on the show often to talk about media matters. I was surprised that ESPN, I was encouraged that at least we know ESPN has some red line now that you can't cross, that to them is like, this is too bad even for us. Pat McAfee dropping F-bombs and muting our show every 5 minutes. No, we don't care about that. Defaming some college student and then not apologizing for 5 months. Shit, apology schmology. We're fine with that. But you go and get accused of rape and sexual assault and settle it civilly. Well, that's a bridge too far for us at ESPN. The mouse has to stand up for something. What was your reaction when you saw Shannon Sharpe cut loose?
My reaction was, whenever that Pat McAfee lawsuit with that college girl settled, his show's going to end the next day, because it will get settled. And yeah, that's going to be the end of Pat McAfee on ESPN, in my opinion. The Shannon Sharpe thing is like, I think we all kind of assumed it when the allegations came out and he, stepped away and said he'd be back by training camp, and then training camp opened up and he wasn't back. It was, the writing was on the wall, and I guess now he'll go enjoy his podcast with Chad Ocho Cinco Johnson, another very calm, collected former athlete who should definitely be given the liberty of being behind a microphone.
No sarcasm
like Shannon
sensed there at all. No sarcasm sensed there at all. Has Stephen A. and I don't mean to sound uninformed. Has Stephen A. Smith said anything about this?
Of course not. Of course not.
Interesting.
Stephen
A. Smith says something about everything.
In his defense, not to defend
he must
somebody
be busy.
who's
He must be
someone
he must
who
be
did
busy.
Horrible.
He must be busy. He must be busy talking to Candace Owens for the 7,000th time.
No, Stephen A's too busy talking to his stacks of money, which would disappear if he came out and defended Shannon Sharpe in any way. I don't blame him for that. The dude's got a massive check. I would want it to clear too.
I wonder what Skip Bayless is thinking right now. I saw a lot of funny memes. About Skip Bayless yesterday. Just kind of sitting back and probably taking some joy in the misery of Shannon Sharpe right now.
Yeah, but he probably was doing it somehow incorrectly.
I do wonder though. And this is what I talked about. We did a SportsWrap short on this yesterday. And I wonder if this points to, you mentioned the Pat McAfee aspect of it. And that's where I am most curious to see. If ESPN now is saying we're going to pull back on the dumb bro culture that is pervasive in what we're doing these days. You see the signing of Rich Eisen. That show starts in about a month over on ESPN Plus and bringing him into the ESPN radio fold. And it does kind of make you wonder if this is the network saying, all right, we've got to pivot here. We've got to reverse course somewhat in terms of how we're presenting our brand. That's what I wonder, because the McAfee deal's what, 3 years? Like, that deal's got to be coming up soon. I thought it was a 3-year deal. I
have no idea.
Yeah, I thought it was a 3-year deal. And it does make you wonder if this is the start of the shift for ESPN. And I keep saying it. We know Fox Sports is going the Barstool route. We see what ESPN has done here with McAfee. And I'm curious to see how other media outlets treat this sort of, this dynamic that exists in media now, where everybody's trying to target younger people, the edgier show. If ESPN's going to pull back away from this a little bit, if the ratings are telling them something, if the research is telling them something, Sam, I wonder, because we don't know what that research shows. Everybody brings in consultants and, has them sit down with a bunch of beers and food and says, tell us what you think. I wonder if the research is telling them that this isn't working. I also wonder if they're making money with McAfee.
Yeah, but the research was telling them not to cancel Around the Horn, and they went with that anyway to save money. I don't know, man. It feels like we went through an era, and the Barstool Fox deal is excluded from this, but we went through an era a few years ago where these big networks just had this opportunity to throw a bunch of money around willy-nilly, and it feels like we are at that inflection point X amount of years later where all of those bad contracts that were given out when they had all that money to throw around willy-nilly are coming back to bite them. It's like the entire sports media scene right now is a team with a bad record, a super team that didn't work out, and now they're trying to salary dump all these pieces.
That's a great point. That's a great analogy. That is a great analogy. It's funny sometimes how sports and sports media can mirror one another. We've got odds and ends around the corner. There is more breaking news from MLB when it comes to the trade deadline. We'll get to it next. All right, just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Thursday. Don't forget, we got a big Friday show. Robert Littell, Black Sports Online founder, always joins us on Friday to talk about the top stories. I'm sure he's got some thoughts on this Shannon Sharpe story as well. Tino Patino will be here. NASCAR is in Iowa with Bubba Wallace coming off his first win and snapping a 100-race winless streak. I'll be interested to hear what Tino has to say. We're scheduled to be joined. I always hesitate to tease that this guy's coming on the show because he's difficult to get. He's a great guest when we get him, but he's difficult to get. Cameron Maybin, former big league outfielder. He's part of the Foul Territory crew. Former big league outfielder Cameron Maybin slated to be on the show on Friday. Crossing our fingers. Hope that happens. Cameron, would love to have you on the show. Again, if you are watching the YouTube version of this show, the trade deadline special, 2 p.m. Eastern, on, 5 p.m. Eastern on Thursday afternoon. If you've already had the trade deadline pass and you're watching us on TV, you missed it, go on YouTube and you can watch it there. The trade deadline special with myself and David Aardsma, SportsWrap, live streaming on YouTube, our YouTube channel, the SportsWrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. If you have not subscribed, what are you waiting for? Commercial free. The show is there every early afternoon, Monday through Friday. Make sure to go and subscribe. The podcast version of the show, if you just like to listen, get it in its natural form. You can listen to it over on your favorite podcasting platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, Amazon, everywhere you get a podcast, commercial-free Monday through Friday. All right, without any further delay, time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends, Sam Yarnell. The end for Mason Miller with the soon-to-be Las Vegas A's. Wow. Look, there had been some thought here, Sam, that there was a possibility that Mason Miller could move prior to the trade deadline. The fireballing right-hander seen here, and ultimately the A's decided to move him. And while the initial thought would be to say typical A's, getting a great prospect and then dumping him off, they got a really good prospect from the San Diego Padres in return, along with a bunch of other pitchers, Sam. I can't crush the A's for this because a young arm like Mason Miller could wind up being great for 10 years. He could also blow out his arm and be done in 2 years. I don't have a problem with this move.
I'll one up you. I'm gonna crush the Padres for this move. Ooh. AJ Preller, you need to watch this program and understand this. If your baseball team does not win the World Series this year, World Series, yes, this year, you are going to be out of a job. This is ridiculous. The A's land not only 4 prospects for a 2-player major league trade, right? They land a consensus top 5 prospect in baseball. Every single prospect list you look at is going to have Leo DeVries on it somewhere or another in the top 10.
Yeah.
This guy is absolutely crazy for trading away a top 5 prospect in baseball for a relief pitcher. I don't care if it's Mariano Rivera. You do not trade a relief pitcher for a top 5 prospect in baseball. Not to mention J.P. Sears, who's been a decent starter at times this year for the Athletics and a tough ballpark to pitch in, for any other 3 minor leaguers that the Padres sent. This is on the heels of everybody finally forgetting about the Juan Soto trade, where you traded James Wood, Mackenzie Gore, C.J. Abrams, and 2 more prospects for 2 years of Juan Soto and never made it past the NLCS. Now you turn around and do this the very second the farm system is at somewhere semblant of where it was when you traded for Soto. This is ridiculous. Now we're hearing, Jason, that they're still in the market for a Jarren Duran or a Steven Kwan, who you and I had talked about earlier in this show. There's a chance they get moved by today's deadline. They could be moved by the time you're watching this show. The Padres are falling apart.
DeVries this year, by the way, at A+ ball, 245, 8-46. He is just 18 years old. He will not be 19 until October. They got him at the age of 17. He is thought to be a stud. Still has to grow into his body a little bit more, which he obviously will. But this is a great move for the A's. And again, the A's are all about setting themselves up for that move to Las Vegas. It's all about not where they are now, but where they want to be in 3 years. And as easy as it is sometimes to crush the A's from a management and an ownership situation in terms of how they left Oakland and sort of the haphazard way in which they are creating this situation in Las Vegas, the interim purgatory that is Sacramento, they are clearly putting together a strategy to have themselves set up so that when they move into this new ballpark in 2028, here in Las Vegas, that they're going to be doing it with a team that's fun and exciting to watch. Well, there will be more moves made. We will have them covered on Friday's show. Anything that we didn't get to here that took place after we said goodbye, we will have it covered on Friday's show. Again, hopefully Cameron Maben will be with us to recap the trade deadline and a whole bunch more. Thank you to David Aardsma. Thanks to you, Sam Yarnell. Thanks to all of you for watching. We'll catch you back here on Friday for more Sports Wrap. See you then.